Hello, friends. Have you ever felt it? Not just a tired body, but a spirit utterly, profoundly drained. A weariness that seeps into your very bones, dimming the light you once carried, silencing the songs of your soul. The relentless drumbeat of life's demands, the crushing weight of unforeseen disappointments, the cold grip of fear and dread all conspiring to extinguish the vibrant flame of your being. You push, you strive, you fight, but the well feels dry, the reserves depleted, and the whisper of despair begins to echo louder than the voice of hope. You look around at the vibrant, seemingly effortless lives of others and wonder, where do they find this unending wellspring? This secret reservoir of strength that allows them to rise, time and again, when everything screams for them to fall. We've sought it in fleeting promises, in mountains of self-help, in transient fads and gurus. But what if the answer isn't new? What if it isn't complex? What if it isn't some freshly minted theory, but lies instead quietly, steadfastly, within an ancient text, a collection of stories and profound wisdom that has consistently restored strength to countless souls for millennia? Not a mere spell, not a fleeting potion, but a profound understanding of what true resilience means, how it is forged in the crucible of existence, and where its endless source truly lies. Today, we're not merely exploring a single chapter, we are unlocking a forgotten blueprint for an indomitable spirit, a power that will not just restore you, but transform you from the inside out. We are delving into the very heart. Imagine a man, his name etched into the annals of suffering. Job, his life, for all appearances, was a tapestry woven with threads of prosperity, righteousness, and profound respect. He was, by any measure, a titan of his time, possessing immense wealth, a thriving family of 10 beloved children, and a reputation for unwavering integrity that stretched across every horizon. He was then, with the abruptness of a thunderclap, the world turned. The sky, once azure, became a swirling vortex of unimaginable terror. Messengers, their faces etched with horror, their voices ragged with despair, arrived one after another, each bearing tidings more devastating than the last. Raiders descended, their blades glinting, stealing his herds, butchering his servants. Fire, a consuming inferno from the heavens, devoured his sheep and the shepherds tending them. And then the final, most shattering blow, a great wind, a whirlwind of death, swept in from the desolate desert, striking the house where all his children were feasting, collapsing the structure, crushing them to death in an instant. Everything, every single thread of comfort, every cherished bond, every material possession he had painstakingly built, everything he held dear, ripped away in a single brutal, unthinkable day. The silence that followed those pronouncements must have been a physical force, heavier than any stone. The air, thick with the phantom dust of destruction and the unheard screams of his lost ones, pressed in on him. He did not rail against the heavens, did not succumb to the madness that surely threatened to consume him. Instead, with a dignity that defied the horror, he tore his robe, shaved his head in a gesture of profound mourning, and fell to the ground, bowing low. "Naked I came from my mother's womb," he declared. His voice a low, rumbling echo against the hurricane of his grief. "And naked the Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away, blessed be the name of the Lord." This was not resignation born of defeat. This was a defiant act of faith, a declaration of unwavering allegiance in the face of absolute annihilation. It was a testament that his strength was not rooted in his fleeting possessions or even in the precious lives of his family, but in something far deeper, far more unshakable. But this titanic test of his spirit was far from over. The story, against all human expectation, intensified its relentless assault. Job's physical body, too, was besieged. Malignant, agonizing boils erupted from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet, an unbearable affliction that left him scraping his festering skin with a shard of pottery, a desperate, pathetic attempt to find a sliver of relief. He sat among the ashes, a pariah, disfigured, his dignity stripped bare, his very humanity reduced to a grotesque parody of its former glory. Even his wife, in her own shattering grief and confusion, her spirit broken by the shared catastrophe, urged him, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job, through the haze of agony, responded with a chilling, almost, "Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity?" His unwavering stance wasn't about understanding the fey of his suffering, the intricate divine calculus behind his pain. It was about asserting the fey of his God, affirming his sovereign right to give and to take, even when the taking was unbearable. This was a man pushed to the absolute precipice of human endurance, yet refusing to break. This was strength of a kind that defied the very definition of suffering. Then came his three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They arrived initially with intentions of comfort, and for 7 days and 7 nights they sat with him in a profound, empathetic silence, recognizing the unfathomable depth of his pain. A silence that spoke volumes, a shared grief that needed no words. As Job finally broke his silence, lamenting the very day of his birth, wishing he had never seen the light, his friends, driven by their own rigid theology and an urgent need to make sense of the senseless, began their relentless barrage. They were wise men, theologians in their own right, and their logic was impeccable, yet utterly devoid of the nuanced compassion that Job desperately needed. Therefore, Job, you must have sinned grievously, perhaps secretly, perhaps unknowingly. Confess, repent. This was not comfort. It was a layered accusation, a psychological torment piled upon his physical anguish, an intellectual assault on his very integrity. Imagine the scene vividly, Job, a man covered in weeping sores, stripped of every shred of comfort, every mark of status, now forced to defend his innocence. He cried out, his voice a raw lamentation, "Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed, and laid in the balances together with my calamity, for now it would be heavier than the sand of the seas." He longed for death, for the oblivion that promised an end to the ceaseless pain, yet he would not concede his integrity, would not admit to a sin he had not committed. He wrestled not just with his pain, but with the profound mystery of a just God allowing such immense, inexplicable suffering to befall an innocent man. He yearned for an audience with God himself, a chance to plead his case, to demand an explanation, to understand the incomprehensible. This was not a man losing faith. This was a man grappling with faith's deepest, most agonizing questions, and in that bold, honest, relentless wrestling, a new kind of strength began to emerge within him, a strength that dares to question, dares to doubt, dares to challenge, yet refuses to let go of the fundamental truth of God's existence and sovereignty. It was the strength of persistent, defiant truth, seeking, even when the truth was veiled in darkness. The true climax of Job's monumental story is not found in his friends' circular, condemning debates, nor in his own despairing cries that skirted the edge of blasphemy. It arrives when God himself finally speaks, not through a prophet, but directly from the heart of a whirlwind, a tempest that dwarfed even Job's personal storm. But God does not offer the neat, tidy explanation Job had. Instead, God unleashes a torrent of majestic, rhetorical questions, painting an overwhelming, incomprehensible tapestry of creation, a cosmic display of his boundless power and infinite wisdom. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me. If you have understanding who determined its measurements, surely you know." God speaks of the ocean's untamed boundaries, the dawn's unwavering decree, the intricate pathways of light and darkness, the raw power of thunder and lightning, the untamable wildness of Leviathan and Behemoth. Creatures beyond human control or comprehension. This divine monologue wasn't an explanation. It was an overwhelming, awe-inspiring demonstration of God's boundless power. It was a searing reminder that the human mind, however brilliant, however diligent, cannot grasp the full, intricate scope of the divine plan, nor can it impose its limited sense of justice upon the creator of the universe. In that moment, Job's desperate longing for an explanation, for a logical reason, dissolved into profound, reverent awe. He saw not a cruel, distant overlord, but an unimaginably vast, sovereign creator, whose ways transcended human logic, human suffering, and human understanding. He responded, not with a list of grievances, not with further demands, but with profound humility and a shattered ego. "I know that you can do everything, and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. I have uttered what I did not understand. This wasn't weakness. This was the ultimate strength, the strength to surrender control, to embrace mystery, to trust in a wisdom and a power far greater than one's own. And in that ultimate surrender, in that profound act of humility, Job's strength was not just restored, but multiplied beyond his wildest dreams. His health returned, his wealth doubled, and he was blessed with a new family, living a life of peace and of Job's story, therefore, teaches us a profound truth. True strength is found not in avoiding suffering, nor in understanding its every nuance, but in enduring it with defiant, persistent faith, asking the hard questions, and ultimately humbly surrendering to a power infinitely greater than ourselves. It is a strength born of brokenness, a resilience forged in the fires of injustice. Now, imagine a battlefield, not of clashing armies, but of overwhelming dread. On one side, the Philistine champion Goliath, a colossal, terrifying figure, standing over 9 feet tall, a living monument to brute force and intimidation, clad head to toe in gleaming bronze armor, his spear like a weaver's beam, its massive iron head alone weighing 15 pounds. He strode forth day after day, his booming voice echoing across the valley, roaring insults, hurling blasphemies, daring Israel to send a single man to face him in single combat, to decide the fate of entire nations. For 40 agonizing days, morning and evening, he presented himself, a monstrous shadow casting fear upon the land. And for 40 days, the entire Israelite army, including their might, they were trained warriors, men of impressive stature and battle experience, but they were utterly defeated before a single blow was struck, completely robbed of their strength, their courage, their very will to fight, by the sheer, overwhelming terror of this one behemoth. Then, a flicker of defiance, a whisper of audacity, a young shepherd boy arrives, an unassuming figure, sent only to bring provision. He hears Goliath's blasphemous taunts, sees the palpable fear in the soldier's eyes, feels the debilitating paralysis that has gripped an entire nation. But within his heart, a different kind of fire burns, an indignation that transcends fear. He is not a seasoned warrior. He has no elaborate armor, no finely crafted sword, no formal experience in the brutal art of battle. His only weapons are the simple tools of his trade, a slingshot honed by years of protecting his flock, and 5 smooth, ordinary stones gathered from a nearby brook. He is an outsider, a mere boy, dismissed with contempt by his own brothers, mocked and doubted by King Saul himself. "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him," Saul declared, his voice heavy with doubt and resignation. "For you are He saw no strength, only vulnerability. But David possessed a strength that none of them, not the mighty king, nor the battle-hardened soldiers, understood. It wasn't physical prowess, though he was undoubtedly agile and brave. It was an unshakable conviction, a fierce and radical faith, born of countless lonely nights in the desolate fields, protecting his defenseless flock from the sudden, brutal attacks of the Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear," he proclaimed, his young voice ringing with quiet, utterly certain resolve. "He will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." This was not bravado, not youthful arrogance. This was pure, unadulterated faith, absolute and unyielding, a quiet certainty in the face of overwhelming odds. He walked onto that hallowed, fear-laden battlefield, a solitary boy against a colossal giant, the very embodiment of vulnerability facing overwhelming, seemingly insurmountable might. The entire army watched, their breath caught in their throats, expecting immediate, gruesome annihilation. Goliath, enraged by the sight of this mere youth, insulted and cursed him by his pagan gods. He promised to feed David's tender flesh to the birds and beasts of the field. But David, with a startling, almost divine courage, did not flinch. His response was not a whimper of fear, but a powerful, defiant declaration that echoed across the silent valley, a spiritual gauntlet, hurled back at the very face of terror. "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. What staggering strength! As Goliath lumbered forward, confident in his brute force, David ran towards him, not away, not hesitating for a second. He reached into his shepherd's bag, took out a single smooth stone, placed it expertly in his sling, and hurled it with pinpoint accuracy, guided by an unseen hand. The stone flew, a silent messenger of divine purpose, striking the giant, an insurmountable terror moments before, crashed to the earth with a thunderous impact, face down, utterly defeated by a boy and a stone. The victory was swift, decisive, and utterly miraculous, a monumental turning point for a terrified nation. It was a vivid demonstration that true strength is not found in weaponry or physical stature, but in the unwavering belief that with divine power, David's story shouts a timeless truth. When you feel overwhelmed, when the giants in your life seem unconquerable, when fear paralyzes your very will, remember where your true power lies. It is not in your own limited resources, but in the limitless strength you can draw upon when you face your fears with courageous, audacious faith. It's a blueprint for overcoming the seemingly insurmountable, a powerful chapter on. Now, let's journey further back in time, to a moment of unimaginable crisis for an entire nation, a people caught between the hammer and the anvil. Imagine millions of people, a vast multitude, who had endured 4 centuries of brutal, dehumanizing slavery. Suddenly, miraculously set free. They had walked out of Egypt, empowered by a series of divine plagues that shattered the will of them. Behind them, the thunderous might of Pharaoh's elite army, chariots gleaming like hungry predators, swords glinting ominously in the desert sun, intent on dragging them back into the agonizing chains of bondage. Before them, the vast, churning expanse of the Red Sea, its deep, impassable waters stretching to the horizon, an impenetrable, unyielding barrier. They were trapped, squeezed mercilessly between an unstoppable force of vengeance and an immovable wall of water. Panic, a raw, primal terror, erupted like wildfire through the throngs of people. Despair, cold and suffocating, gripped their hearts. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness, they cried out, their voices shrill with fear and accusation, directed. Their strength, so recently renewed by the exhilarating act of the Exodus, evaporated like morning mist in the face of this overwhelming, seemingly inescapable dilemma. Their hope was not merely dimmed, it was extinguished. Moses stood at the edge of the impossible. He had led them out of bondage, performed spectacular miracles before Pharaoh, stood firm against overwhelming odds. But this, his people, the very ones he had sacrificed everything to liberate, were turning on him, their fear twisting their voices into bitter accusations, questioning his leadership, even his sanity. What does a leader do when all human hope is lost? When the path forward is blocked by an ocean, and the path backward by an army of relentless vengeance? How does one find strength when facing such utter, unequivocal defeat? Instead, in that moment of ultimate crisis, he lifted his voice, not in lamentation, but in a powerful prophetic declaration that cut through the cacophony of fear. Do not be afraid, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. This was a man who understood where true strength resided, not in human strategy or military might, but in an omnipotent divine intervention, a power that could reshape reality itself. He then cried out to the Lord, a silent, desperate plea from the depths of his soul, and the answer came clear and resounding. Why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward, but lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea. Imagine the weight of that command. Go forward into the vast churning sea. It defied all logic, all human understanding, all natural laws. It was an absurdity, yet Moses, with an unshakable, audacious faith, raised his staff, a simple shepherd's crook now imbued with divine authority, and as he did, a mighty east wind began to blow relentlessly. Fierce, the waters, immense and ancient, began to part slowly at first. Then majestically, forming two towering, shimmering walls of water, a liquid canyon with a miraculously dry path down the middle. This was not a mere ripple. It was a cosmic act of breathtaking power, a testament to a strength that commands the very elements, that reshapes the very fabric of creation. The Israelites, trembling but compelled by an unseen, irresistible force, began to walk through the parted sea on dry ground, millions of them, a slow, awe-struck procession through the heart of the impossible. Behind them, the Egyptian army, blinded by hubris and driven by vengeful fury, pursued them blindly into the watery corridor, believing they had finally trapped their prey. But as the last Israelite stepped onto the far shore, onto the blessed ground of freedom, Moses, by divine command, again stretched out his hand over the sea. The towering walls of water, unleashed from their invisible bonds, collapsed with a thunderous roar, a cataclysmic surge that swallowed the chariots, the horses, the soldiers, utterly annihilating the pursuing army, in that their human strength had been utterly depleted, their hope gone, their very lives hanging by a thread. But a divine power, a limitless strength had stepped in, turning utter defeat into unimaginable triumph, demonstrating beyond any doubt that when human strength fails completely, divine strength prevails, carving paths through oceans, delivering freedom from the very jaws of despair. This is the restoring power that waits for you too, when you dare to trust beyond sight, when you dare to step into the impossible at the command of a higher power. It's a chapter of courage, dependence, and miraculous deliverance. Consider Elijah, a prophet forged in fire and burning with zealous devotion. He had just experienced one of the most incredible public triumphs in biblical history. On the desolate slopes of Mount Carmel, he had stood utterly alone against 450 prophets of Baal, daring them to call down fire from their impotent God. When Baal remained silent, lifeless, tragically absent, Elijah, with a voice that thundered across the valley, called on the Lord, the one true God. And fire descended from heaven, consuming his soaking wet sacrifice, the wood, It was a spectacular, undeniable vindication, a moment of profound spiritual victory that shattered the illusion of false gods and led to the slaughter of Baal's prophets and the end of a devastating years-long drought. Empowered by the Spirit, he had even outrun a royal chariot, running ahead of King Ahab for miles, a superhuman feat. He was, by all accounts, at the absolute pinnacle of his power, a spiritual giant among men, invincible. Yet immediately after this monumental, glorious victory, Queen Jezebel, a fierce, vengeful devotee of Baal, sent him a chilling message, a direct, unequivocal death sentence. So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them. And in that precise moment, the seemingly indomitable Elijah, the man who had faced down an entire pagan priesthood with unwavering courage, crumbled. His spirit, pushed beyond its limits, broke. He fled. He ran for his life, not just from Jezebel's murderous threat, but from the immense crushing pressure, the spiritual exhaustion, the unbearable weight of his solitary prophetic. He ran a day's journey into the desolate wilderness, a flight not just from a queen, but from his own overwhelming despair. There, utterly spent, he collapsed under a broom tree, seeking the meager shade it offered from the scorching sun. And there, with a raw, desperate honesty, he prayed for death. "It is enough now, Lord. Take my life, for I am no better than my fathers." He was utterly depleted. He was a shell of his former powerful self. But God, the God of boundless compassion and unwavering faithfulness, did not abandon him in his darkest hour. An angel of the Lord appeared, gently touched him, and provided him with a freshly baked cake and a jar of cool water. "Arise and eat," the angel commanded, his voice a balm to Elijah's shattered spirit, because the journey. Elijah, in his exhaustion, ate and drank, and then, still overwhelmed, lay down again, seeking the oblivion of sleep. The angel returned a second time, urging him again with gentle persistence. "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." Elijah ate again, and this simple, divinely imbued food, this sustenance from heaven, miraculously gave him strength, not just for a day, but for 40 days and 40 nights, sustaining him all the way to Horeb, the ancient mountain of God, the very place where Moses had encountered the burning bush. There, in the solitude of a cave, deeply hidden from the world, God spoke. But God did not speak in the mighty wind that tore apart mountains and shattered rocks, nor in the violent earthquake that shook the very ground, nor in the consuming fire that blazed through the darkness. All these manifestations of raw power passed him by. Instead, after the fire, there was a sound, a still small voice, a gentle whisper that resonated not with thunder, but with truth. He simply gave him new instructions, new purpose, a fresh commission, and gently reminded him that he was not, in fact, alone. 7,000 in Israel had not bowed to Baal, and others would carry the mantle after him. Elijah's story is a profound, deeply human reminder that even the strongest among us, even those who have witnessed and wielded immense divine power, can experience deep. So even after great victories, the enemy, or simply the relentless, cumulative weight of life's burdens, can leave us utterly spent, despairing, and longing for an end. But in those moments of profound weakness, when we feel completely drained, isolated, and abandoned, God does not demand strength we don't have. He provides the very sustenance we need, the vital rest for our weary souls, and the quiet, reassuring voice that restores our spirit, reminding us we are not forgotten, not alone, and giving us the gentle, persistent strength to continue the journey, one step at a time. This is a strength that understands weakness, that meets brokenness with compassion, and responds to despair with renewed purpose. Now, let's fast forward to a later time, to a man who, perhaps more than anyone in the early history of the Christian movement, embodied restored strength through relentless, unfathomable suffering, the Apostle Paul. His life was not merely a series of events. It was a living, breathing testament to enduring hardship for a singular, monumental purpose. He recounted his experiences, shipwrecked 3 times, spending a terrifying night and a day adrift in the open sea, enduring countless brutal beatings with rods, being stoned and left for dead outside a city, facing constant dangers from robbers, from his own countrymen who sought to kill him, from hostile Gentiles, dangers in the bustling city, dangers in the desolate wilderness, dangers on the perilous sea. And beyond all these external pressures, these physical and emotional assaults, he carried the daily crushing burden of anxiety for all the nascent churches, a weight that stretched across an entire empire. By any human measure, by every conceivable metric of endurance, Paul should have been utterly broken, consumed by bitterness, and completely exhausted. He was frequently imprisoned, mocked, yet from the cold, damp depths of a Roman prison, shackled and awaiting what would likely be his execution, he penned letters that are not filled with despair, but with overflowing joy, unshakable hope, and an audacious, unwavering confidence. To the Philippians, a community he deeply cherished, he wrote, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice." How could a man facing imminent execution, stripped of his freedom, facing constant opposition, exhort others and himself to rejoice? What kind of strength was this? This was a man who understood the profound secret of true, unassailable strength. It wasn't found in his circumstances, which were perpetually dire, never improving, always threatening. He articulated this paradox with startling clarity in 2 Corinthians. "Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong." This is a paradox that shatters conventional understanding of power and vulnerability. How can weakness, utter human frailty, actually be the pathway to strength? He understood, with a clarity forged in suffering, that his own limitations, his physical infirmities, his moments of fear and exhaustion were not hindrances to his mission, but precisely the conduits through which a greater, divine power could flow most potently. When he was at his weakest, when he relied least on his own failing abilities and most on the unfailing power of God, that is when his most iconic declaration, found in Philippians 4:13, resonates with profound, liberating truth. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This isn't a boast of self-sufficiency, a defiant declaration of human will. It's a declaration of utter, joyous dependence on an infinite, inexhaustible source of power, a power that makes the impossible. It's a testament to the fact that whatever trials you face, whatever mountains seem insurmountable, whatever deep well of exhaustion you find yourself in, there is a power available to you that transcends your limits, that is waiting to be accessed. It is a strength not manufactured by human effort, not generated by positive thinking alone, but infused by divine presence, enabling you to not just endure, but to thrive. This is the restorative power that radically changes your perspective from impossible to I can do this, transforming the very landscape of your limitations. And now for the ultimate demonstration of restorative strength, a story that stands as the bedrock of faith, the very heart of the promise of renewal. A narrative that defines the very essence of spiritual triumph. The story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is not merely a narrative of suffering, but of strength forged in ultimate surrender, leading to ultimate victory and the profound, cosmic restoration of all things. Imagine Gethsemane, a garden heavy with the scent of ancient olive trees, bathed in the pale, ethereal glow of moonlight. Jesus, the Son of God, stands on the precipice of unimaginable. He knows, with perfect clarity, what awaits him. The betrayal by a friend, the false accusations and mockery, the brutal, dehumanizing scourging that will tear his flesh, and the agonizing, humiliating death by crucifixion. He has spent his earthly life, healing the sick, teaching profound truths, loving the marginalized, performing miracles that defied natural law. But now the full, crushing weight of humanity's accumulated sin, every sickness, every sorrow, every act of rebellion, is about to fall upon him, about to consume him. This is not merely physical pain he faces. It is a spiritual anguish so profound, so overwhelming, that it causes him, the very creator of life, to sweat great drops of blood, a chilling sign of his profound humility. In that moment, in that garden of agony, he is utterly, devastatingly alone. His prayer, raw and honest, echoes through the quiet, dew-laden garden, a plea from the deepest recesses of his human and divine being. My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. This is not a moment of weakness, not a sign of wavering, the strength to face unimaginable dreadhead, on to feel the full human impulse to shrink from excruciating pain, yet to choose consciously, deliberately, and fully the path of divine will, even when that path leads to the cross. It is the strength of perfect obedience, a surrender that is not defeat, but the ultimate act of courageous, self-sacrificial love. An angel appears from heaven not to remove the cup, but to strengthen him. A poignant reminder that even the Son of God in his human form, in his moment of deepest vulnerability, needed divine reinforcement to endure his darkest hour. Then comes the brutal, dehumanizing journey to the cross. The mocking, the insults, the crown of razor-sharp thorns pressed into his scalp. The agony. He carries the heavy, rough wooden beam through the crowded, jeering streets of Jerusalem, stumbling, falling under its immense weight, his body failing, his physical strength seemingly gone, his spirit enduring every indignity, nailed to the cross, suspended between a darkening heaven and a trembling earth. He endures hours of excruciating pain, every breath a conscious, agonizing effort. The sky darkens at midday, an unnatural eclipse. The earth trembles as if groaning in cosmic agony. His cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" is the raw, agonizing human experience of ultimate abandonment, bearing the unfathomable weight of all our separation from God, all our sin, all our despair. By all appearances, this is the ultimate defeat. But listen closely. Listen to the profound significance of his final words, gasped out in triumph. It is finished. This was not a cry of resignation, not the last pathetic gasp of a dying man yielding to death. This was a powerful, triumphant declaration. It is finished means the work is done. The cosmic debt is paid, the victory over sin and death. It was the ultimate act of strength. The strength to persevere through the unimaginable, to fulfill a divine purpose even unto the most horrific death, to overcome not by fighting back with force or rebellion, but by embracing sacrificial love to its fullest, darkest, most painful extent. And then, the profound, agonizing silence of the tomb. For 3 agonizing days, the world held its breath, but on the 3rd day, the earth shook again. The enormous stone was miraculously rolled away, and the tomb, the cold, silent tomb, was empty. Jesus, the one who was dead, was gloriously, undeniably alive. He rose not as a fleeting ghost, but with a transformed, glorious body, bursting forth from the clutches of death, demonstrating the ultimate restoration. This was not just a resurrection. It was the ultimate act of cosmic restoration, a boundless promise that even in the deepest darkness, after the most crushing defeat, when all seems lost and consumed by death, new life, new strength, and ultimate, everlasting victory are always possible. It is the core message that no matter how broken you feel, no matter how much strength you believe you have lost, there is a power beyond. So what is this powerful Bible chapter that will restore your strength? It's not just one isolated chapter you can turn to, one single passage to memorize. It's the very spirit woven through every single one of these monumental narratives, the lifeblood flowing through the entire tapestry of divine interaction with humanity. It is the profound conviction that strength is not the absence of weakness, but the willingness. It is the liberating understanding that true power is forged not in comfort, but in the crucible of suffering. That audacious faith can indeed move mountains and miraculously part seas, that even in your darkest, most debilitating despair, there is inexhaustible sustenance, gentle guidance, and the unwavering promise of renewal. It's the deep truth, that ultimate victory. The powerful chapter is Job's defiant, unyielding faith in the face of utter, inexplicable loss, his unwavering certainty that his Redeemer lives, even when everything else has perished. It is David's audacious, boyish courage, walking onto a fearsome battlefield with nothing but a sling and a prayer, utterly convinced of divine aid against an impossible giant. It is Moses's unwavering, obedient faith at the edge of the Red Sea, daring to command the impossible, trusting that God would make a way where there was no way. It is Elijah's experience of profound comfort and renewed purpose found in the still, small voice of God, even after profound soul-crushing exhaustion and suicidal despair. It is Paul's triumphant, paradoxical declaration, "When I am weak, then I am strong," living out the liberating truth of Christ's power perfected in human frailty and suffering. And it is, above all, the transformative cosmic power of Gethsemane and the cross, where ultimate agonizing surrender birthed ultimate, glorious triumph, and death itself was swallowed up by eternal life, ensuring the ultimate. This strength, this indomitable spirit, this inexhaustible wellspring, is not some elusive secret reserved for a select few, for ancient heroes or revered saints. It is available to you right now, in your own life, in your own struggles, in your own moments of profound weakness. It is accessed not by brute force of will, but by quiet, humble surrender, not by loud boastful declarations, but by trusting childlike dependence, not by desperately escaping pain, but by courageously enduring it with a faith that looks beyond the present moment, to a future shaped by divine promise. When you feel the crushing weight pressing down, when the well of your own resources seems irrevocably dry, remember the unwavering spirit of Job, the audacious, giant-slaying faith of David, the courageous, ocean-parting obedience of Moses, the quiet, gentle restoration of Elijah, the enduring prison-defying joy of Paul, and the ultimate, death-conquering triumph of Jesus. They all point unmistakably to a source of strength that never runs dry, a reservoir of divine resilience available. This power is waiting for you in those very moments you feel weakest, when the burden feels heaviest, when your own strength has utterly failed. It's found in the quiet moments of desperate prayer, in the profound truths embedded within the pages of these ancient stories, in the unwavering, unbreakable promise that you are never, ever alone. It is the strength to face your deepest fears, to overcome your most daunting obstacles, to heal from your most grievous wound. It is the strength that miraculously transforms your suffering into triumph, your ashes into beauty, your despair into an unshakable living hope. This is the profound truth of the powerful chapter that will restore your strength. It's not a single text you can turn to, but an entire epic narrative of divine power, woven intricately through human weakness, an invitation to tap into an inexhaustible eternal source of spirit. If these stories resonate with you, if you feel that whisper of renewed hope stirring within your spirit, if you recognize the echoes of your own struggles in these ancient sagas of overcoming, then you have begun to grasp the liberating depth of this timeless wisdom. This isn't just dusty history. It is a living power, dynamic and transformative, ready to flow into your life and change everything. Embrace it, live it, and watch as your own strength is not just restored, but utterly transformed, becoming a testament to a power far greater than yourself. Alright, that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button to show your support. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.